Two planets that almost never move in agreement are lining up right now. And today is the day you can actually feel where that agreement lands in your life. If the last few weeks have felt heavier than usual, more intense conversations, more sudden realizations, more of your old patterns getting pulled up to the surface where you couldn't ignore them, you're not imagining that. The sky's been busy, and there's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from a stretch like that, even when the realizations were good ones. You can only sit with that much intensity for so long before you start craving something steadier. That's exactly what's arriving now. Not a dramatic new event, but a genuine exhale after a run of days that asked a lot of you. If you felt worn down rather than excited lately, that's not a sign you're falling behind. It's a sign you are paying attention. You know that feeling when you've been climbing for a long time on two separate paths at once. One path is where you've been pushing, growing, saying yes to things, reaching past what felt comfortable. The other path is where you've been showing up anyway, doing the unglamorous work, holding a structure together even when nobody was watching. Most of the time, those two paths don't run anywhere near each other. You either feel like you're expanding, but nothing is holding, or you feel like everything is finally solid, but nothing is growing. Today, for a short window, those two paths are converging, and when two trails meet at a ridge, you don't just keep walking, you finally get a vantage point. You get to see the whole valley you've been climbing through. That's what's happening above you right now. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, possibility, and yes, is moving through Leo, bold, warm, unwilling to shrink itself. Saturn, the planet of structure, patience, and not yet, is moving through Aries, the sign of raw beginnings, of starting something from nothing. Normally these two don't cooperate easily. Jupiter wants to stretch further, Saturn wants to slow down and check the foundation first. But right now, they're forming a trine, a flowing, 90% agreement kind of angle, the kind astrology has recognized for centuries as the difference between a wish and a working plan. A trine, if you want the mechanics of it, means the two planets sit roughly a third of the way around the sky from each other, about 120 degrees apart. The same geometric spacing that makes a triangle. Astrologers have leaned on that particular angle for a long time because it's the shape of least resistance. Two forces supporting each other instead of colliding head-on, the way they do in a square, or staring each other down from opposite ends of the sky, the way they do in an opposition. This isn't the exact peak of the alignment yet, that lands within the week, but today is the day the pull becomes unmistakable. You don't need a chart to feel it. You've probably already felt it as a shift in your mood, a sudden clarity, an itch to finally start the thing you've been circling for months, maybe even a strange, specific calm settling in where there used to be static. Here's what almost nobody tells you about Jupiter and Saturn. On their own, they're both a little dangerous. Jupiter without Saturn is a fire that grows so fast it burns through its own fuel. Big ideas, huge motivation, and nothing underneath to hold the weight once it lands. That's the person who starts 11 projects and finishes none of them, who says yes to everything because it feels expansive, and then wonders why nothing actually changed a year later. Saturn without Jupiter is the opposite problem. All discipline, all caution, all delayed gratification, and never any joy in the reaching. That's the person who built something solid and stable and safe, and quietly resents how small it feels. Most of us live somewhere between those two failure modes, tipping one way or the other depending on the week. What a Jupiter-Saturn trine offers, and this is rare enough that it's worth paying attention to, is a moment where expansion and structure stop fighting each other and start working from the same blueprint. Growth that's actually built to last, not the kind of luck that evaporates in a month, but the kind that compounds because there's a foundation under it. It helps to understand why this particular pairing is rare enough to talk about at all. Jupiter and Saturn only fall into a major agreement like this a handful of times across a couple of decades because they move at completely different speeds. Jupiter circles the sky roughly every 12 years. Saturn takes closer to 30. Most of the time, they're out of step with each other, moving through completely different relationships to your chart. When they do finally line up in a flowing angle, like a trine, it tends to mark a genuine chapter shift. Not because the sky is magic, but because it's rare for expand and hold steady to be pointing the same direction at the same time. The last real stretch where these two cooperated this openly was years ago, and a lot has probably changed in your life since then. Whatever you built in that time, however slowly, is exactly what's being offered support right now. Think about the trail junction image again, because it's not just decoration. It's exactly how this works. When you're deep in the climb, you can't see the whole shape of where you've been. You just see the next 10 feet of trail in front of you, the roots, the loose gravel, whether you're breathing hard. It's only when two paths meet at a clearing that you get the view. And the view does something practical, not just pretty. It shows you which direction you were actually heading the whole time, even when it didn't feel like a straight line. If you've been feeling like the last few months made no sense, like your effort and your growth were happening in two completely different parts of your life that never touched, today is the day you get to see how they were always the same mountain. The version of you that kept showing up on the hard, boring days is the same version of you who's now standing at the place where the bigger opportunity actually opens up. That's not a coincidence, and it's not luck landing on you at random. It's the direct result of not quitting on the unglamorous path when nobody was watching. You might notice this show up differently depending on which part of your life has been carrying the most weight lately. If it's been your work, this can look like a project you've been quietly refining, finally getting real traction, or a conversation about your role landing easier than you expected. If it's been a relationship, it can look like a repair conversation that's been stuck suddenly finding its footing, or an old tension softening without a huge dramatic scene. If it's been something more private, a creative project, a habit you've been rebuilding, your relationship with yourself, it can look like the next step simply feeling obvious instead of exhausting, like you finally have enough clarity to stop circling and just move. None of these are guaranteed, and none of them look identical from one person to the next. What tends to be consistent is the feeling underneath them, less friction than usual, and a stronger sense that your effort is finally going somewhere instead of disappearing into the void. Which brings up something worth naming directly. A lot of people hear a phrase like, "This is your moment," and immediately think it's not for them, that it's for the person with better timing, better luck, a cleaner story. Let's be honest about what actually determines who benefits from an alignment like this one. It isn't luck in the lottery sense, it's readiness. Jupiter can only expand what already exists. It can't manufacture a foundation out of nothing in a single afternoon. So if you've spent the last stretch of time, even quietly, even when it felt pointless, building something, learning something, holding a boundary, showing up for a responsibility, you didn't feel like showing up for, then you are exactly who this alignment is speaking to. Not because you were picked out of a crowd by some cosmic lottery system, but because you did the Saturn work already. And now Jupiter has something real to expand. This isn't exclusive. It isn't 12 people on the planet who get to feel this. It's anyone who's been quietly doing the unglamorous version of the work. If that's you, this message found you on purpose. There's a reason this particular pairing lands with a certain kind of courage instead of quiet contentment, and it comes down to the signs involved. Both Leo and Aries belong to the fire element, the part of the zodiac associated with initiative, willpower, and the refusal to stay small. A trine between fire signs doesn't usually feel like calm reassurance. It feels more like your nerve coming back. You might notice yourself wanting to speak up in a conversation you'd normally sit out of, or feeling less patient with situations you've been quietly tolerating. That's not you becoming reckless. That's Leo's warmth and Aries' initiative finally getting Saturn's blessing to actually move instead of staying penned in as someday energy. If you feel a little bolder than usual today, that boldness has real structure underneath it. It's not going to evaporate the way sudden confidence sometimes does. And if you're sitting there thinking, I haven't been doing that work, I've been stuck, here's the part that actually matters more than the planetary mechanics. Readiness isn't a finished state. It's not a certificate you either have or don't have. It's built in ordinary moments. The conversation you finally have today instead of putting off again. The task you finish instead of half finishing. The boundary you hold once instead of caving like you usually do. You don't need 6 months of preparation behind you to use a day like today. You need about one honest decision. Saturn doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for follow-through, starting now, on whatever is actually in front of you. There's a specific kind of self-doubt that shows up right around alignments like this one, and it's worth naming so it doesn't quietly run the show. It sounds like, what if I get my hopes up and nothing happens? That fear is Saturn's voice, and it's not wrong to take seriously. Saturn is the planet that remembers every time hope didn't pan out. But notice what that fear is actually protecting you from. Not failure, but disappointment. And the trick with a Jupiter-Saturn trine is that it isn't asking you to hope blindly. It's asking you to act on the ground you've already built. That's a very different thing than throwing caution out the window. You're not being asked to quit your job on a feeling or bet everything on a hunch. You're being asked to take one real grounded step toward the thing you've already been preparing for, because right now, that step has more support underneath it than it will most other weeks this year. Picture the actual inner conversation, because it's rarely as dramatic as, I'm scared of my dreams. It's smaller and quieter than that. It's the voice that says, let me just wait one more week to be sure, and then that 1 week turns into a month, and the month turns into a story you tell yourself about bad timing. It's the voice that says, I'll send the message once I've rehearsed it enough, and the rehearsing never quite ends. None of that is weakness. It's Saturn doing its job a little too well, protecting you from a disappointment that hasn't even happened yet. The difference today is that you get to answer that voice with something more solid than blind optimism. You can say honestly, I've already done the preparation. This isn't a leap, it's the next step. So what actually shifts if you take that step today instead of waiting? Nothing magical and nothing guaranteed. Let's be honest about that, because certainty isn't what this offers. What it offers is momentum with less resistance than usual. The message you've been drafting for 3 weeks and haven't sent Sending it today moves differently than sending it during a stuck, heavy week. The idea you've been sitting on because it felt too big. Writing the first real version of it today, instead of just thinking about it again, plants something while the ground is actually receptive. This is less about a single dramatic event, and more about which decisions, made in this specific window, tend to compound rather than evaporate. You'll likely notice it less as fireworks, and more as things starting to click into place with less friction than they've had in a while. A reply that comes faster than expected. A conversation that goes somewhere real instead of in circles. A version of an old idea that suddenly makes practical sense. It's also worth saying plainly what this is not. This isn't a promise that today brings a windfall, a diagnosis, a financial outcome, or a guaranteed yes from anyone. Astrology, at its most honest, isn't a prediction machine. It's a mirror that helps you notice timing you might otherwise miss. Jupiter and Saturn moving into agreement doesn't remove your responsibility to actually do the thing. It just means the resistance you're used to fighting through is temporarily lower. This isn't about waiting for a windfall to land in your bank account, or a diagnosis to resolve itself, or a stranger to suddenly say yes to something they were always going to say no to. It's not that kind of magic, and anyone promising you that kind of certainty is selling you something, not reading the sky honestly. What you do with that lowered resistance is still entirely up to you, and that's not a disclaimer tacked onto the end. That's actually the whole point. Agency doesn't disappear just because the sky is cooperating. If anything, this is the moment agency matters most, because the excuse of the timing is against me is harder to reach for today than it usually is. There's also a quieter cost to waiting that rarely gets said out loud, so let's say it plainly. Waiting doesn't just delay the outcome, it usually adds a layer of self-doubt on top of it. Every week you sit on the thing you already know you're ready for, the story in your head gets a little more elaborate, a little more evidence for why it's not the right time, a little more distance between you and the version of yourself who almost did it. That's not urgency for the sake of urgency. That's just an honest description of how avoidance tends to compound the same way readiness does. Acting today doesn't guarantee an easier road. It just means you stop paying that particular tax on your own momentum. If you want one concrete thing to do with this, here it is. Pick the one thing you've been building quietly. The project, the boundary, the relationship you've been trying to repair, the version of yourself you've been slowly becoming. And give it one real, visible action today. Not 11 new things. One honest continuation of the thing that's already been true for you. Maybe that's finishing the draft instead of reopening it for the 20th time. Maybe it's the phone call you've rewritten in your head so many times it's lost its meaning. Make it anyway, even imperfectly. Maybe it's simply telling one person the truth about what you actually want, out loud, instead of only rehearsing it in private. Small, specific, and real beats big, vague, and imagined every time, especially today. That's the trail junction moment. That's where the effort path and the growth path actually meet, and where you get to see, maybe for the first time in a while, how far you've actually come without fully realizing it. You didn't get chosen by accident, and you weren't chosen because you're somehow different from everyone else watching this right now. You were chosen because you kept walking the unglamorous path, even on the days it felt pointless. And today, that path finally opens onto a view. Whatever you do with the rest of today, let it be one honest thing instead of 10 scattered ones. You don't need to fix your whole life in an afternoon, and nothing here is asking you to. You just need to notice the ridge you're standing on. Look at how far the trail actually stretches behind you, and take the next step like you mean it. The version of you who kept showing up quietly, who did the boring maintenance nobody applauded, who held the line when it would have been easier to let go, that version of you built exactly what's being supported right now. Take it. Not with blind hope and not with fear either. Just with the same quiet follow-through that got you here in the first place. That's yours to keep, no matter what happens next, and no one can take that particular kind of readiness away from you once it's built.